Purna Savarna Kirtana Hridayanto Abhadrani Vidanoti Suhissatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31 and Text 48. Samyag darshanaya buddhaya yoga vairagya yuktaya maya virachite loke charenyasya kalevaram. Synonyms: Samyak darshanya, endowed with right vision; buddhaya, through reason; yoga, by devotional service; vairagya, by detachment; yuktya, strengthened; maya virachite, arranged by maya; loke, to this world; charer, one should move about; nyasya, relegating; kalevaram, the body. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus, one can be unconcerned with this material world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. It is sometimes misunderstood that if one has to associate with persons engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problem. To answer this argument, it is described here that one has to associate with liberated persons not directly, physically, but by understanding through philosophy and logic the problems of life. It is stated here, Samyak Darshanya Buddhaya, one has to see perfectly and by intelligence and yoga and logic, yogic practice, and by intelligence and yogic practice, one has to renounce this world. That renunciation can be achieved by the process recommended in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The devotee's intelligence is always in touch with Supreme Personality of Godhead. His attitude towards the material existence is one of detachment, for he knows perfectly well that this material world is a creation of illusory energy. Realizing himself to be part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, the devotee discharges his devotional service and is completely aloof from material action and reaction. Thus, at the end, he gives up his material body or the material energy, and as pure soul, he enters the kingdom of God. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the third canto, 31st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Kapna's Instructions on the Movements of the Living Entities. Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshitarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I seek blessing from all assembled Vaishnavas, and please for giving me the opportunity to purify myself by reading these Bhagavad text, and please forgive me for any shortcomings or any of my personal interpretation in the summary. So this text 48 brings about very significant emphasis on detachment from illusory material world, and also talks about how devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna can help one in climbing the ladder of detachment. Following the path of devotional service, one gradually gets detached from illusory world and gets attached to spiritual activities and service to the Supreme Lord. In many of the previous verses in this chapter, Lord Kapila has explained the suffering of living entity from the very beginning, when the living entity lives in the womb of the mother, undergoing through very harsh and dirty environment in the womb. Later on, as soon as the living entity enters this material world, he or she has to face various challenges and problems of material existence. After a myriad of instructions of Lord Kapila in previous text, this text 48 expects that the devotee is endowed with right vision. The right vision means that the devotee has the realization that he is not this material body and has a pessimistic attitude toward material identity. The living entity should have the realization that he is spirit soul, being part and parcel of Lord Krishna. As a result of this understanding, one can become unconcerned with this material world. As the translation of this text explains, that with the right vision, coupled with devotional service, one can relegate one's body to this illusory world. In other words, one has to mentally assign the body to inferior position of material world, and one has to reinforce the understanding that one is a spirit soul, being the part and parcel of Lord Krishna. Devotional service of Lord Krishna plays the most significant role to strengthen the right vision of the living entity. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the material world. The devotional service and the whole spiritual process leads one to perfect knowledge of everything, material and spiritual. The results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from the material propensities and becomes attached to spiritual activities, which include devotional service to Supreme Lord, and which is the real goal of human form of life. Devotional service to Supreme Lord Shri Krishna is the only path to break one from the cycle of material birth and death and progress towards the path of spiritual world. Also, to help oneself in detachment from the material affection, one has to engage one's senses in the service of Lord Krishna, since he is the master of our senses. We are parts and parcels of Supreme Lord, and hence one should subject one's senses to the service of the Lord rather than engaging for sense gratification to cater one's own desires. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human form of life is meant for inquiring about absolute truth and render service to the absolute truth, that is Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the highest enlightenment. And when such enlightenment is there, it is just like blazing forest fire, killing all the inauspicious snakes of desire. Verse 934 of Bhagavad Gita relates very well to this current discussion. In Bhagavad Gita 9:34, Krishna says, Man manabhav mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru mave vashasi yuktevam atmanam mad parayana. And the translation is, engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Also, Bhagavad Gita, verse 10:10, Krishna says, Tesam satat yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. And the translation is, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me.